It's that time already. It has been one entire year of dealing with the coronavirus. And unfortunately, I don't think we're out of the woods just yet. I'm not exactly sure when this virus is going to end, but I do know that we are all still collectively struggling with the weight of how to deal with coronavirus. So today I'm doing a training for you on how to manage your mind through the rest of Corona time, which hopefully won't be that much longer. And I'm really excited to bring it to you today. So if you are ready, let's get into it. What's up, my friend, and welcome back to another training. My name is Jen Stevens. I am a spiritual life and business coach, and this is my YouTube channel. I'm so excited to welcome you aboard today. I release a new training here every single week, all about up-leveling your life through the tools of mindset and manifestation. Basically, I like to talk about woo-woo kind of topics, but I'm always giving you really practical tips that you can go ahead and start using today. So if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We have reached the 1 year mark here with living with coronavirus. It has been a wild ride. I started off this year being quarantined for 2 weeks, meaning I could not leave the house fully for 2 weeks, which is extremely challenging. We have had a lockdown here in Germany going on 4 months now at the time of me recording this. So there have definitely been things this year that have been challenging for me to deal with. Thankfully, there is news about vaccines and things seem to be heading in a good direction, but I know that a lot of us are still struggling from Corona brain. I mean, this whole entire year has thrown us all for a loop. It has taken away a lot of the security we thought we had. It has just caused us to create way more questions, way more anxiety about a lot of things that we have maybe never had to think about before. So if you're here now with me 1 year in and you are feeling still a little bit not like your normal self, hopefully today's video is going to help you to get a hold of that. So before we get into the actual tips that I wanted to talk about today, I just wanted to take a moment here to pause and talk about mental wellness in general. So this is a concept that still isn't really addressed, and I really think Corona has shone a light on how little attention we pay collectively to mental health unless there is already a problem. So the way I like to think of this is like physical fitness. And in the 1950s, nobody went to the gym, nobody had a personal trainer, like you were kind of a weird outlier if you did any of that stuff. And today, this is something that most people take pretty seriously. It is very common for you to have a gym membership, and it's common for you to have a trainer. This is exactly the way I think the world will be going when it comes to mental health. And so in the future, it is going to be a lot more common for people to spend time taking care of their brains, taking care of their minds, watching what they're thinking, and therefore generating better feelings. And that is a lot of the work that I do within life coaching. And in fact, I think life coaches are going to be like the physical trainers of the future, only we're the physical trainers for your brain. So if you're feeling weird about this stuff, or if you feel like you just should have this figured out, which seems to be the predominant attitude in many places, I just want you to remember that nobody here knew what to do. This is all new territory for everybody. And if your brain is having a little bit of a freak out, that does not mean anything bad about you. If you're like most people, nobody has ever taught you how to use your brain, how to manage your anxiety, how to manage your thoughts. So all of this stuff that has happened to us over the last year has really been a challenge. Everything in life actually is a challenge if you don't know how to manage your brain. So today, hopefully I can give you some tips on how you can start to do that. So the first thing that I want you to start to understand about your brain is that your brain really is hardwired to see negativity in the world around it. So this is important to understand because in times like this, when things are a little bit crazy, when the news is going all the time, what we're really doing is just feeding this part of our brain. And this part of our brain is really not actually doing us any favors at this point. But what really happened was back way back in like caveman days, having an overgrown fear mechanism in our brain was actually good for our survival as a species. Of course, the people that worried about things and that weren't going out there and taking crazy risks were the people that survived. And remember, we are all the ancestors of the survivors. We are the ancestors of people that had a big worry center in their mind. So it is not just you. Your brain really is wired to see negativity in the world around it. So that just creates this amazing wildfire of anxiety in us. I remember a year ago, I was totally doing this, and you probably were too, but I was constantly reading about all the new news about Corona, trying to figure something out, trying to make myself feel better by clicking through and reading more and more and more. And this is just actually a normal human fear-based response. When we feel afraid of something, which I very much did a year ago, we are trying to look for something that is going to reassure us. We are going to go out onto the internet and look for something that will make us feel better. Unfortunately, that goes hand in hand with the news companies whose job is to make you click. So there's definitely over the last year been a ton of misleading, shocking, over-the-top, scary headlines. And that's all just feeding this fear-based part of our brain. We are thirsty for it. We are looking for it because we think reading something is going to help us. But it really isn't going to help us, and it's just going to make us even more edgy, feel even more anxiety, even more fear. And when you are in fear mode, you are not actually operating at your best behavior. I'm sure everybody has had this experience before. When you are afraid of something, it's like you have blinders on. So you stop paying attention to the other things in your life. You probably aren't worrying so much about paying bills or making progress on your career or working on your relationship when your brain is taking up all of its time trying to get Corona information, of which sometimes there isn't very much. That part's less important than just understanding that having this brain of yours that is looking for things in the world to fear is just normal. So if you are finding yourself obsessing over the news or obsessing over figuring something out or clicking through, doom scrolling, as they say, this is really just a normal response. I'm just going to go out there and suggest that it is not a healthy response. And just because it's normal and it's just because it's what your brain wants you to do does not mean you need to do it. It is in everybody's best interests if you find yourself in that state of mind when you're panicking and reading over and over and over or doing whatever it is you do. That you give yourself a break. Like, it is okay to go and read the news. In fact, of course, I think that's essential. But if you start to become addicted to the scroll, addicted to the negativity cycle, you are really just putting your body in an extended stress state. And of course, what happens when you're in an extended stress state? Your body actually has physical reactions. It actually lowers your immunity, which is not what we want right now. And it can actually create disease of its own over time. So you really don't want to let yourself stay in that state where you're constantly refreshing and constantly looking for the next terrible piece of news. It really isn't doing anybody any favors except for the news companies that are creating it. So that would be my first tip for managing Corona brain. But the second thing that I wanted to talk about with Corona brain is just learning some basic skills about how you can manage your mind. And so this isn't really any different than managing your mind when it comes to anything else. It's just that, again, when we are in fear mode, when we're doom scrolling, when we're out there looking for information because we think it's going to make us safe, we really buy into feeling like we have to be worried, like we have to be afraid, like we have to do this in order to protect ourselves. So I just want to remind you that this is all optional. You right now are buying into this because that's what your brain wants you to do, but there is another way out. We don't understand that we are always creating meaning. We are always creating stories, and that includes anything that we happen to be reading about the coronavirus. So when you read a headline like coronavirus deaths are up or whatever the headline might be, there's a story you're making in your brain up about that. And that story could be, oh, this virus is out of control. This should not be happening. These people are dying and I can't do anything to help them. Whatever the story might be, this is just a thought that you are having about that headline, right? There's a difference between this headline with all of these deaths in it, like not saying that doesn't matter. Of course, that's a very real thing. That's a very grave fact in the world. But when you read that headline and you make it mean something like, the virus is out of control, of course, that sentence, the virus is out of control, is going to make you feel panicked. So it's not really the headline that is making you feel panicked. It is your story about the headline that is making you feel panicked. This is true in every single thing in the world. Yes, even the fight that you had with your boyfriend, even a conflict you might be having at work, everything around us that is not us doing something is an external circumstance that we have no control over. And there are lots of them. Coronavirus existing is one external circumstance that we do not have control over. What we have control over is always the same thing. It is your story about what that means. Of course, if you buy into this idea that this virus is out of control and it's going to kill everybody, of course that's not going to feel good in your body. Of course that is going to spike your anxiety, your fear, going to put you in fight or flight mode, and we don't want any of that. I'm not saying that you should look at those headlines and not believe them and turn into a person that is denying this, although that is another reaction that perhaps some people's brain is having. What I'm saying is that this is a real virus and there are real deaths happening about it, and that the stories that we create and therefore the feelings that we have, those are the things that we get to control. There is the circumstance, which is the facts in the world, there is your thought about it, and there is your feeling about it. But it's not the circumstance in the world that is making you upset. It is your thought that is creating the negative feeling. And once you understand this, everything can change. So a lot of the coronavirus stuff has triggered a bunch of feelings about us feeling out of control, or us feeling like we didn't know this was going to happen and that somehow we're behind in life, and that, there's something about this virus experience that we could have managed better. So I just want to talk about that for a moment because that is such a big thing for many of us, myself included. But the exact same rules apply to this way of thinking as to the facts of the coronavirus. So we tend to think, the coronavirus came in and, I lost a certain amount of money, or this other thing happened, or I lost my job, and this should not have happened. I'm not saying that it's a good thing that anyone lost money or lost their job or anything like that, of course, but we tend to think that because life was a certain way before, that it was always going to be that way. And that is never the case. We are actually never in control of our life. There is always stuff happening, and there are always things that are going to get in the way of the goals that we're having. For example, I know I've talked to people that are frustrated right now with their manifesting goals because they feel like they can't do anything. And I totally get that. But really, it is just us being in a rush. It is really us just judging where we should be that is creating that negative feeling. So if you can kind of flip the situation around and realize that coronavirus is always going to happen, that is not me saying that I'm glad it happened. But if you look at it like this was just something that was going to happen, like polio happened, the Spanish flu happened, these things just happened in the world at certain points in time. This is just another thing that is happening in the world at this time. Just because we didn't expect it doesn't make it a bad thing. Like, I'm not looking backwards in time and thinking the Spanish flu should never have happened or polio should never have happened. I mean, of course, it would be great if neither of those things happened. But just because this thing is happening in our current reality, we have a lot of resistance to it. And the thing is, when you start to resist what your current reality is, you are going to set yourself up for a world of pain, because reality is going to win 100% of the time. We can wish that things were different, but that really doesn't have any bearing on actual reality. We can tell ourselves this shouldn't have happened, but the fact that it is happening means it was always meant to happen. This virus was meant to be here at this moment in time. And again, that doesn't mean that I wished it was here or that I'm happy that it happened. This is just something that we need to learn how to deal with. One of the things our ego brain loves is to feel like it knows everything and to feel like it's in control. And during our normal life, when we have, a home that we've lived in for a long time and a job that we've been going to for a long time, we like to think that we've got it all figured out and our ego brain is really satisfied. But let's use a relationship example for this. Maybe you got into a relationship, maybe you got married to somebody, and maybe at some point in time, the person that you were with is like, I don't want to be married anymore. And that can really send you for a loop. That's happened to me, and it really wasn't comfortable. The thing is, when somebody gets married, they are getting married in part because they think that this means something. When you get married, you think, I'm signing up till death do us part, so that means I'm going to be with this person for the next 40 years or whatever. And we forget that isn't really what it means. That's what we want it to mean, but the person that you are with, even this person you might have spent many hours with, like many years with, that person can change their mind and there's nothing you can do about it. That person could also pass away and there's nothing you can do about that either. And I know this sounds really negative right now, but what I'm saying is that we like to think that we have it all figured out and that our life is just going to unfold the way we want it to. And it very rarely does that. Coronavirus is just another way that we are showing this to ourselves. Nobody expected this to happen. Nobody expected it to go on this long. So in some ways, when you are thinking this shouldn't have happened, I should be further ahead, my business shouldn't have gone down, whatever the shoulds that you are having, you are just wasting time because you are fighting with reality. And reality is just what is actual facts in the world, as opposed to the story that we created in our mind, which is our expectations. Our expectations are always based on the past. Our expectations have no guarantee of actually coming true. Yet whenever we hit an expectation that is not fulfilled, we feel profound disappointment. So that leads me to the final point I wanted to make about coronavirus. In this time when life isn't quite looking like the way you thought it would, this is a really good time to remember that part of you is in a grieving process. You are grieving your old life. You are grieving normal life. You are grieving maybe going to the grocery store without wearing a mask. It is okay to have those feelings. It is okay to miss how things used to be. But that is different than rallying against what is actually happening because it shouldn't be happening. Do you see what the difference is? So we can look at the past and acknowledge the things that we are quote unquote losing and let ourselves just accept that and be sad about it and let that grief go through us. That is how it moves. That's how it changes. And that's how we can come out the other side. If you are living in this state of constantly denying reality, fighting against reality, that is a really long fight because, of course, Corona has been going on for a year. And if you've been rallying against it, saying this is wrong, feeling like this shouldn't be happening, this has been a year of that, a year of you internally fighting what is. And again, like I said before, every time you fight against reality, you lose. Like there is no way to win that fight. So if you want to be sad, if you want to grieve, if there is actually something in your life that you lost, it is 100% okay to mourn that. And so try thinking about that as grief. And grief isn't something that any of us really want to cultivate, but letting yourself grieve is actually really healthy. Letting yourself just be sad about something that is no longer in your life, that is the best thing to do. Again, fighting it as if it shouldn't have happened is not the way to approach this, but letting yourself just feel the emotion and accepting where you are now, that is the best way forward. Another aspect of Corona mind, Corona brain that I wanted to chat about today is just not feeling like there's anything to look forward to in life. It is a really profound thing that actually I have struggled with personally, and I know a lot of other people have struggled with. But we all, tend to have goals for ourselves, things to look forward to, plans that we're making, travel plans that we're making. And it has been quite a thing to learn how to go through life with not only uncertainty, but not being able to plan anything and not knowing when any of that stuff is coming back. So again, for that, I just want to point out that our brain loves certainty. Our brain loves to create expectations for how our lives should be. And I just want to point out that, we meet bumps in the road in terms of our expectations all the time. This particular road of Corona has been a lot longer and therefore a lot more challenging, but this isn't something that we have never encountered before. We have all maybe applied for a job that we didn't end up getting, or fell in love with somebody that turns out didn't love us back. We have created expectations over and over again in our life that didn't end up being true. And what I want you to know from that is that is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing to create a story in your mind. The only thing that is really bad is that when we get upset that our expectations didn't turn out and then we blame ourselves or blame the world around us. Again, our brain just wants a guarantee. It wants to know what is going to happen tomorrow. And while we go to bed every single night trusting that the sun will get up tomorrow, there really is no guarantee that it will. Once you get that, once you understand that, then maybe it's a little bit of a reminder to lean in and to start to enjoy the present moment, exactly where we are in Corona land, for what it is. The thing that I find really funny about Corona is that I know so many people that are like, I just want a week off to watch TV. And perhaps they got more than a week off to watch TV this year and found out that was, fun maybe for a little while. What I'm saying is that back in normal life, we wouldn't be able to do some of the things that we could do or had to do during Corona. And that is okay. It is okay to enjoy the different existence that has come up. I know I have personally spent a lot more time at home, and I was a homebody before. So that has been challenging, but it's also been nice. It has been nice to challenge myself to really lean into a more strict routine, to get really healthy. I took a dry January challenge. There's been many things I've done for myself and my mental health and my physical health that I don't know that I would have otherwise. So this time, no matter what has happened to you, it has not just been about loss. Even if you lost a job or lost a family member, there are still things that you learned and experienced during this time that have ultimately made you a better person. This is all meant ultimately for you and your journey. You are here to grow. You are here to become your next level self. And there will always be a challenge. There will always be something in the story that we're writing in our mind that doesn't actually come true. You do not have to make that mean anything. And it really doesn't mean anything. The more that I do this work, the more I realize I make stories up that have no basis in reality, and then I get really upset with myself when they don't happen. And I know I'm not alone there. So if that is you, join the club, but come on over here to where I'm hanging out and just start to be a little bit more compassionate. Expectations not working out doesn't mean anything about you. Your goals not happening on the timeline that you wanted them to doesn't mean anything about you. Not saving as much money or making as much money or whatever it is doesn't mean anything about you. We can never control the world financial market ever. So even though we might want to blame that on Corona, you can't always blame it on Corona. There is always going to be something in the world that you did not anticipate that is affecting you on some level. And really, this is what the Corona mindset work is. You need to learn how to disengage from the facts of the situation and realize how your thoughts amplify your negative emotions. When you're going into that place of feeling fear, of feeling anxiety, of feeling like, oh my God, what is going to happen? Ask yourself what the story is. What story am I creating about this? And what story could I be creating about this? Because you don't have to create a story. You can just read the headline about how many Corona infections happened today, and you don't have to make that mean the world is ending. You can just read it for what it is and leave that alone and keep your mental and thought space for yourself. This is the superpower of self-coaching. This is the superpower of life coaching. And I know it sounds very simplistic, and we are all so used to just following our brain down the negative rabbit holes it wants to take us, but you do not have to be there. And in fact, I challenge you not to be. So that is it for today's training on dealing with the coronavirus. And I really hope you found something that you can start applying here today. The biggest takeaway that, of course, I want you to have from this training is that you get to reframe every single thought that you have. And if you are seeing scary things in the news or in the media, you do not have to chase the fear that they are putting out there. You can change and manage every thought. And in fact, I suggest that you do, because otherwise we become like little ping pong balls, just reacting to the things we read or the things that we watch on the news. You really are in so much more control over your life than you think. Yes, even during times like this, when it seems like everything has gone heads up. I know personally, learning these life coaching tools, these self-coaching tools, has done a lot to help keep me on track. And I really hope that you can start to apply these concepts in your life so that you can start to feel better and ultimately create a better future for yourself, because that's why we're all really here. So with that all being said, thank you so much for watching this training today. If you enjoyed this, please go ahead and give me a like. If you know somebody that can use this message, go ahead and pass it along to them. If you want to learn more about me and my work, you can come on over to the site. I have a brand new monthly membership program for you, which is all about manifesting your best life, but through the tools of healing and recoding your mind. So it's very much stuff that we talked about here in this training today, but with an edge towards consciously creating the life of your dreams. So if you want to learn more about that, I'll leave a link for that in the description box below. And other than that, I'll see you back here in next week's training. So until then, I really hope that you can learn to give yourself a little bit of inner peace, because you really do deserve that no matter what is happening in the world around you. So with that, my friends, I'm wishing you a lovely week of happy manifesting, and I will see you soon.